A new hotel is going up. It's one of 5 which are going up in London. They are the last words in luxury, modernity, and comfort. But as they go up, another hotel is coming down. It was once the most famous hotel in the world. It looks rather shabby, doesn't it? Almost lost in London's St. James's. Inside now, it's stripped and bare, awaiting only the demolition men. These are the last few days of the great, some say notorious, Cavendish Hotel. Through these same doors, I came as a young man, and my father and my grandfather before him. I must say we were an excellent company. There wasn't a notable person in the last 60 years who didn't come through those doors at the back there. Kings, emperors, Edward VII, the Kaiser, great painters like Sargent, playwrights, Shaw, Barry, all the politicians, Gladstone, Asquith, the lot. They all came here. The visitor's book read like a mixture of Debrett and the New York Social Register. The incredible woman who ran this place liked to think of it as a private gentleman's house. But the thousands who flocked here knew better. They looked on it as a gilded house of pleasure, somewhere where licensing hours were completely unknown. And you could have anything you wanted, provided always that you asked for champagne. You know, it was more like a club than an hotel. It certainly wasn't open to the public. If your face didn't fit, if you didn't belong, you could come here in vain. Or you could walk through the door and ask for a drink. But if the waiter didn't like the look of your face, he wouldn't serve you. You might even be asked to leave by the door through which you'd come. Who was this odd woman who managed to get the great of this world to come here to this old building in Jermyn Street? Well, she was a woman who, in her own fashion, certainly deserves to rank with the most famous of the famous people who came here. Her name was Rosa Lewis. She married a butler. Her father was an unsuccessful watchmaker. She was one of 9 children. She had 4 years at an elementary school. At the age of 12, she went into domestic service. From these unpromising beginnings, Rosa climbed and climbed until she wasn't only cook to the great, but friend and confidant to the great, and in a decided fashion, ruler of the great. But if it was difficult for even the great to get into the Cavendish in the first place, it was even more difficult to get into this once pleasant garden, an oasis of quiet in the very centre of London's bustle and roar. When Rosa wasn't holding court in her parlour, she was out here, in the inner holy of holies, with her most favoured guests around her. What secrets this small garden could tell. Though Rosa was full of the backstairs gossip of 50 years, she still had, when she needed it, all the discretion of an elder statesman. She must have heard more cabinet secrets than the prime ministers themselves. And all the prime ministers were here at one time or another. Even Sir Anthony Eden as a young man. It was here that the Times newspaper was sold by Lord Astor to the rising Lord Northcliffe. That was only one of the big deals that went on in the discreet surroundings of the Cavendish. And what a jumble it all is. 3 old houses knocked into one, with a modern bit tucked on. The oldest part dates from Charles II, and there was much in the Cavendish way of life which reminded one of the merry monarch at his merriest. Just one small public dining room, the rest just bedroom after bedroom after bedroom. The bedrooms, you can well imagine, would have some stories to tell. One, at any rate, can be told about this room, because it was here on the notorious tiger skin rug that the passionate love affair between the lady novelist Eleanor Glynn and the Marquis Curzon, Viceroy of India, no less, took place. Here, before this fireplace on the rug. Rosa was extremely proud of this affair. She even named a room at the Cavendish after Eleanor Glynn. But not everybody who came to the Cavendish came in search of pleasure. A lot came in search of comfort too, and comfort they got. Even in the days there were only 3 bathrooms and they had to wander up and down the corridors in their dressing gowns. But the mysterious thing is how these people who came only for comfort, the clergymen and bishops with their families managed to not to know what was going on in the rest of the hotel. How they avoided seeing the hijinks which went on permanently, one will never know. But they did. Well, there's management for you. But people were also attracted by the hotel's superb cuisine. It was in kitchens that Rosa laid the foundations of her tremendous reputation, cooking for all the great people of her time, King Edward VII and all the rest. She was indeed a cook of international reputation, acknowledged to be so, a woman of world fame. When the Kaiser visited England in 1907, it was Rosa, the ex-kitchen maid, who was summoned to cook for His Imperial Majesty. The Kaiser's admiration for Rosa pleased her enormously, and she admired him too as a man. Very easy in his ways, she said. But when the First World War broke out, she returned the decoration that the Kaiser had given her and hung his signed portrait ceremoniously upside down in the men's servants' WC. This parlor was the nerve center of a party which went on for 50 solid years. And there in that chair sat the great party giver herself, Rosa, still beautiful in her old age, still assured. I can see her now, wrapped in that moth-eaten fur coat that she called her sables of sin, and as like as not having her toenails trimmed by her faithful companion. And always with a glass of champagne in her hand. And how was this great party paid for? Well, by a system of accountancy that only Robin Hood would really have appreciated. The formula was quite simple. The very rich paid for all the others. Well, she's gone now. But you know, right to the last she was in charge. When the bombs came and pulled down the ceiling and demolished the walls, she came out into the hall there and she had a look at the mess and she summoned Moon, the waiter. Moon, she said, you see this? I've got to go away for a couple of days. I shall be back on Friday. I want to see everything exactly as it was before. Do you understand? Well, that was the way she was. It hardly matters now. They're pulling this place down. There'll never be another hotel like it. There'll never be such luxury. There certainly won't be as much champagne. There'll certainly never be another Rosa Lewis. There's a 14-story hotel rising on the site of this. Well, I suppose that's progress, and I suppose it's inevitable. But there's no doubt about it. It'll never be another Cavendish. Never.